Ladies and gentlemen, this may be the most important video you have ever watched. This video shows absolute proof that these indictments and trials against Donald Trump are not just frivolous, but are intentional and are being used to interfere with the 2024 presidential election. A DOJ chief of public affairs admits on camera that the Trump indictments are a politically motivated perversion of justice, reveals the lawfare involved in making the former president a convicted felon backfired on Democrats, claims his former colleague Alvin Bragg's case is nonsense, and alleges he was stacking charges. But before we get started, I want to make sure to give credit to Steven Crowder and his team from Mug Club Undercover for exposing this shocking corruption. Now, for many of you, this probably will not come as a surprise, but for some who may not pay much attention to current events, it will. That being said, make sure to share this with a friend or family member.
He was stacking charges and rearranging things just to make the case nonsense. It's a perversion of justice.
To make him a convict, a convicted felon. It affects his candidacy if he's a convicted felon.
It's a travesty of justice, a mockery of justice.
Let me be clear about something on the outset. The person you'll be watching today is not the bad guy here. Unwitting whistleblower? Yeah. Nicholas Biasi is the chief of public affairs for the Department of Justice's Southern District of New York. Something you may be familiar with, and the most prominent federal trial court in America.
Those felonies did nothing to stop Trump from running.
No, in fact, they made him more relevant.
Did that backfire?
Sure did.
And
The whole thing is disgusting. They're just out to get him. And that's why I like the surging of the bullets. It's a perversion of justice. He was stacking charges and rearranging things just to make the case. No, to be honest with you, I think the case is nonsense. State levels are Wild West. They're like idiots. They don't care. They're all political. So yeah, this guy's probably going to try to lock him up, and it's going to be ugly. They're so obsessed with getting him.
who is they?
Alvin Bragg, yeah, who I've known for 15 years. He used to work in my office. Before he decided to prosecute Trump, did you know who he was? You do now. I'm not sure what he wants to be, but I know he's not happy just being the DA of New York County. So Alvin's very ambitious. Every real estate person in New York does what he did. Nobody's ever been charged with this until him.
Mr. Biasi is just saying the quiet part out loud. The part that unfortunately matters. Lawfare? Yes. Why? Because Biasi openly says so. The ones from Alvin Bragg are a particular perversion of justice. How do you know? Because Biasi says so, and he's known him for 15 years. Election interference? At this point, is there any doubt?
Are those even actual felonies? Because I was pretty sure that...
He was stacking charges and rearranging things just to make the case. No, to be honest with you, I think the case is nonsense. Every real estate person in New York does what he did. Nobody's ever been charged with this until him. And that's why I like the surging of the bullets. It's a perversion of justice.
Those felonies did nothing to stop Trump from running.
No, in fact, they made him more relevant.
Did that backfire?
Sure did.
And was that Alvin Bragg's choice to do that? Or why?
Because Alvin's very ambitious.
What do you mean?
He wants to be, something. I don't know what. Mayor. I'm not sure what he wants to be, but I know he's not happy just being the DA of New York County. So this is like before he decided to prosecute Trump. Did you know who he was? You do now.
What was the point of even doing it then?
to make him a convict,
Make him what?
a convicted felon.
What if he can still run for presidency and
Yeah, but it affects his candidacy if he's a convicted felon.
I was trying to count the losses. I was like, I wonder like how many are against him. I think it's called Lawfare.
Yes,
That's what I've gathered from that.
that is what they call it.
So how does this even happen? How can it happen? How can the local and state level courts try President Trump with more ease and less red tape than the federal courts? That doesn't seem right to the uninitiated, but you are the uninitiated. Good thing Biasi isn't.
I mean, at the federal level where I work, there is a 90-day rule where you can't make any decisions on cases that are going to affect an election. That rule does not apply at the state level because the state level is like the Wild West. They're like idiots. They don't care. They're all political. So yeah, this guy's probably going to try to lock him up, and it's going to be ugly. They're so obsessed with getting him.
Who is they? How did they get away with that?
It's a different system. Like the state level and the federal level are like night and day. It's hard to explain, but like there are so many more rules in the federal level, and they're like the threshold for a crime is so much higher. Like I said, it like the state level is like the Wild West of law. It's like very, for lack of a better term, unregulated. Less checks and balances.
And I know what you're thinking. I thought it too. Well, you're talking about one case or two or 19. Hey, if it's local, you break the rules. You pay the piper, or even if you don't, if you're President Trump, pay the piper. But there are other cases in the country. There are a lot of them where there's smoke, there's fire. Right? What about the Georgia electoral interference case? Right, that Donald Trump is currently having to face under Fani Willis, right? The Fulton County District Attorney who was caught having an affair with the special prosecutor Nathan Wade.
So is that the strategy against Trump? Just hit him with all the legal battles all across, like the
100%.
Fani Willis, Georgia stuff. What do you think about that case?
It's a travesty of justice. To put it mildly, it's a mockery of justice. She is a joke. Like her and her boyfriend she was seeing, the whole thing is disgusting. They're just out to get him.
I guess at this point, the only argument left is why should you trust anything Biasi has to say? Let me make the case. Biasi is an expert. He has firsthand knowledge and experience. And despite how the media is going to try and spin this, he is kind of an authoritative voice as the chief of public affairs for the Department of Justice's Southern District of New York. This man knows the players, he knows the game, and he knows that it is rigged.
Who's that? Alvin
Alvin
Bragg?
Bragg, yeah, who I've known for 15 years. He used to work in my office. So here's us, here's Alvin, he's county level, and he decided to do the case.
Yeah.
And Michael Cohen was their star witness who we prosecuted.
Okay.
You know who he is? That guy's psycho. He calls me. And he
What
records
does he
it.
want with you?
He's like, he's got this thick New York accent. He's like, is this Nicholas Biaggi, the chief of public affairs? And I'm like, yeah, this is me. He's like, this is Michael Cohen. Why won't you guys, vacate my conviction? And I'm like, I can't really, I'm not authorized to speak to victims or defendants, which I thought was a pretty good answer, not knowing who was calling. And he was like, well, who can he speak to? And I was like, the media. And he goes, I have one of the biggest podcasts in the U.S. But I kind of didn't believe him.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, you're still a defendant, and that precludes me from talking to you.
Of course. I've known Alvin for 15 years.
Like, how well do you know him?
I used to work with him for 10 years.
You guys had dinner together and hung out?
No, we weren't best friends.
Okay.
But I mean, like, if I see him, we're like, I mean, we know each other really well, but like, do I respect what he's doing? No. Is he a nice guy?
What about like the other people you work with? Do they know it's all a political perversion?
Yeah. Of course.
Oh, Trump stuff?
Yeah.
Well, we deferred on all this stuff.
What do you mean?
We investigated and, decided that, for one thing, there is precedent that you can't indict a sitting president.
You cannot.
You cannot.
Okay.
There's an Office of Legal Affairs rule that you cannot indict a sitting president. It's just too disruptive to the country. So we didn't. But the DA did.
Again, it's important to remember that Biasi is not the bad guy here. I know you're probably mad. Lawfare is a thing. And it's not only happened to Donald Trump, it's happened to many of you watching or listening right now. Some of you don't even know it yet. You don't live in a free country simply because you have laws. You only live in a free country if the laws are applied equally. Otherwise, the law is not a tool to protect a free people. It's used as a weapon to bludgeon the people who perhaps think wrongly.
So it's very interesting, these higher level individuals themselves, when they are talked to in a private setting, they will admit that this is a whole charade against Donald Trump to slap him with the label of convicted felon. And they also admit that it's not working. It's only boosting his popularity. But nonetheless, it's very disturbing. Now, this individual, Chief of Public Affairs, Nick Biasi, has officially responded, and this was his response. This was posted by Louder with Crowder. And this is what he said. I was recently made aware of a video where I regretfully made some statements in a private and social setting that don't reflect my views about 2 local and state prosecutions. So they say one thing in private and one thing in public. Very interesting. I said these things in an effort to please and impress someone I had just met who was secretly filming me. I am deeply sorry to the local and state law enforcement officials working on these matters who deserve more respect than I showed them. I should have known better. Nicholas Biasi, Chief of Public Affairs for the Southern District of New York. Now, what do you guys think of this? Do you think the statements he made in private reflect his true beliefs? Or do you think, like he said, he was simply trying to impress? Now, I don't know what this woman looked like, but I assume she was an attractive female. Do you think he was simply trying to impress her? Let me know what you think down below in the comments. Like and subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it. Share this with a friend or family member. But until then, I will see you on the next one.